Mr. Babbitt, I find that as I listen to a lot of electronic music that I find myself so wrapped up in the sound that it's hard for me to hear the music. The sound refers back to science fiction film soundtracks and that kind of thing. Is this a problem in your composing work?
Well, if you hear it this way, then I do regard it as a significant problem. Because I think if there's one generalization I can make about all of the composers, or at least most of the composers who are working in these media, it is that they are not particularly interested in new sounds as such. There's nothing that becomes as old as quickly as a new sound, or one that has such, if you wish, tired connotations, as you yourself have just indicated. We did not turn to this medium in order to get, if you wish, new kicks from the world of sound. On the contrary, we were concerned with something very, very different, and that is the control of time in music. And I don't mean this in any metaphysical sense. I mean it in a very practical, realistic sense. Look at the tape machine. You can control time by measurable length along the reel. In all of the cases of the computer, and as we shall see in the synthesizer, time is specifiable to any degree of accuracy. Now, that is not possible in conventional instruments. They provide automatic or semi-automatic means of, let's say, pitch control, but no comparable means of time control. So as composers became more and more concerned with rhythm in every sense of the word, speed and flexibility of succession, the time rate of change of loudness, such aspects of music which are realistic and perceptible, but not controllable, then they turned to this medium that would provide it. Composers didn't turn to the electronic medium because they didn't know what else to do. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and this was the only means of doing it.
Well, now, as we've begun to see what the real virtue for the composer of the electronic media is control in many dimensions. Is
Precisely.
That a good conclusion?
That's indeed the central conclusion. The composer wants to be master of his composition from beginning almost to the end. I say almost because this is music which, by its very nature, must emanate from loudspeakers, and we can't control what happens very often in those loudspeakers and, above all, in the room after that point. This may seem petty, but it's not. It's crucial, after all. So we haven't solved all the problems of performance by turning to this medium, but we have solved the problems of specifications. We create our works from the beginning. We, in a sense, copy our scores, rehearse the works, produce the work, and it's there on that tape. That is our work.
Another word keeps coming up. We've heard something about the role of the computer in this kind of music, but you are known as a composer on something called a synthesizer. Can
Absolutely.
you tell us something about what it is?
The synthesizer, which we're now discussing last, I think, for a good strategic reason, was developed by RCA. Indeed, it's known as the RCA electronic, well, I call it sound synthesizer rather than music synthesizer to avoid so-called aesthetic controversy. The sound synthesizer looks very much like a computer. Many people are likely to think that it is a computer. It's a large piece of equipment, many pieces of equipment indeed, and it has a programming input. And the composer sits in front of this little keyboard and indicates to the machine by punching holes in paper tape all of his musical instructions. And nothing is preset. He must decide what those instructions mean. He must decide everything. But it is not a computer. It can't compute. It has no memory devices, for which it may be grateful. It is not, in any sense of the word, an operator on this information. What it does is serve as a switching circuit. The programming goes in, and what that programming controls are components very much like the components of a tape studio: oscillators, filters, envelope controls, and the like. The difference is this, that succession and every aspect of specification is controlled by a programming input.
Now, and yet in this a piece of yours that we are about to hear, you have added a voice, a human voice,
Yes,
which performs live.
Yes, and not in the case of the Randall piece where the voice was recorded. This is meant for live voice to be performed with it. This is the setting of a 12-stanza shape poem of Dylan Thomas called Vision and Prayer, and I was simply interested in the combination of the human voice, which I would not want to synthesize at this moment, related to both psychologically and musically to this totally synthesized tape track.
Here is Vision and Prayer, performed for us by Milton Babbitt and soprano Ethel Casey.
Under the of slime. I fly, so I beat on, not only flat, not in but share what within the inmost narrow of my open, that he who learns now the sun and moon, whose marvel's near, may return before the lips and bloom to the best forever behind the worst bone and freedom and a room in infant light and prison yawned to his foot scoffing in the name of mountain, lost on prison mountain, in the sense of dark I pray him. Then he let the dead lie at his own, for his briar hand to hide him through the shine of his first wound, and the blood drop hardened, endure the sun, the blind, who sleep in the dark and deep rock. Heart wound, let it break, and deep by the sun, and the beating dust be blown, down to the broken face, and of the night forever falling.
You've just heard a portion of Milton Babbitt's Vision and Prayer, performed by Mr. Babbitt and Ethel Casey, soprano. And our special thanks are due to Miss Casey for her performance of an exacting role, to Miss Judith Haskell for preparing the dance portion of the program, and to Mr. Milton Babbitt, composer, for helping us organize this program. As we have seen, electronic music gives composers a control and an organizing ability they never had, and it gives them sources for new sounds. Already, composers have produced a substantial number of significant works, and just as the invention of the piano made possible music that could have been written for no other instrument, so it is with electronics. The important thing to keep in mind is that electronic music promises the future an entirely new musical literature without eliminating the masterpieces of the past. This is NET, the National Educational Television Network.
This is NET, the National Educational Television Network. The men and women of Brown Shoe Company, your neighbors in this area, bring you the Screen News Digest, a pictorial report on the events which shape modern history. It is their hope that this film will provide you with a broader understanding of those events because of the vital importance they have to the world in which we live and in which your children and their children will live.